Today we're going to start our lesson by talking about equivalent decimals. Remember, when we use the word equivalent, we mean equal. They are of the same value. And to get started, I want you guys to write the following on your notebook. And we're just going to remind ourselves what the place values are. So starting here by the decimal point, let's start going to the left first. So we've got ones, tens, and hundreds. You guys are familiar with that. You've been working with that for many years now. Notice my end are S, S, and S. I want you guys then on the other side of the decimal point, so we're going to the right side of the decimal point, we are going to be talking about less than 1. So instead of starting with ones, we're starting with tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and then our next one over is 10 thousandths. Now that we have those place values reviewed, let's talk about what would be equivalent to 8 tenths. So if I'm looking at 8 tenths, I'm going to put my 8 here. And I want to know what's equal or of the same value if I'm in the hundredths spot. Well, to make it the same value, I'm going to have to put 0 here. So 0 in the hundredth spot. That would be 80 hundredths. What I'm essentially saying there is I'm saying 8 dimes or tenths are the same as 80 pennies or hundredths. Okay? If I put a 1 here, that would not be equivalent. 81 hundredths is more than 8 tenths. So let's think about thousandths now. If I want to stay in the 8 tenths, I've got to add 100. I'm going to add another 0 into my thousandths. So I've got 0 and 800 thousandths. So if I'm going to read these, I'm going to say 8 tenths is equal to 80 hundredths, which is equal to 800 thousandths. Let's look at this next example that I have here. 1 and 2 tenths is equal to, I'm going to put my 1 in my whole spot, my 2 tenths. Now I want to make an equal hundredth, so I'm going to add my 0. 1 and 20 hundredths. To move to my thousandths, I'm going to add another 0 and make it 1 and 200 thousandths. These are all the same value. I can add zeros this way as much as I want. However, I cannot add zeros this way in between here, because if I do that, what that does is it moves my 2 over, and 2 hundredths, like that, is much different than 2 tenths. That'd be 2 dimes versus 2 pennies. Pause this video now and give this next one a try. In this example, I've given you the hundredths, so 4 and 40 hundredths. You need to find the equivalent tenths and the equivalent thousandths. Pause this video and give that a try. If you gave that a try, you should have had, so 4 and 40 hundredths. The equivalent tenth would be 4 and 4 tenths. The equivalent thousandths would be 4 and 400 thousandths. We have the freedom to add zeros to the right-hand side, so long as we don't put a number value in there. So if I put 1 in there, that'd be a problem. The last thing that we're going to talk about today is the forms of decimals. And we've talked about this with whole numbers before, but I want you to pause the video and I want you to cut your paper into 4 sections like I've done here. You've got a decimal section, you've got a fraction section, we've got a word section, and we've got an expanded section. So pause that video now. You don't need to start a brand new sheet, but maybe on the rest of your paper you can split that up. All right, so writing decimals in different forms is an important part of understanding decimals. So if I'm going to start here with just listen as I go through this first one, and then we'll write the next one together. So if I start with 1 and 82 hundredths, I can also write that as a fraction. So I can go 1 and 82 hundredths. Another form that I can write it as is word form. So I would write out 1, making sure I'm writing and for my decimal, 82 hundredths. Being careful that I'm adding my THS there. One that we haven't talked about too much as far as decimal goes is the expanded form. So when I am doing the expanded form, remember if I were to take, for example, like 842, I would go 800 plus 40 plus 2. That's the expanded form. So what is that going to look like in decimals? Well, I would go like this. I would go 1, because I've got one whole, plus 8/10, because I'm pushing that out, plus, and then I've got 2 hundredths, so I've got to put 0 and 2 hundredths. So the expanded form is going to be our challenge for today. So I've pulled out each one of those sections and expanded it out. This next one I want you to write with me, so let's do the fraction of 4 and 629 thousandths. Write that out. As a fraction, I'm going to have 4 wholes. Then I'm going to have 629 over 1,000. Word form is going to be a little bigger, so 4 and 629 thousandths. And now for the expanded form, I'm going to take each one of my place values. So I'm going to start with 4 plus, then I'm going to go to my tenths, so 0 and 6/10, plus, I'm going to go look at my hundredths, 0 and 2 hundredths, plus, and then I'm all the way to my thousands, so I've got to hold my place values, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Pause this video, make sure you have this written down as an example in your notes. Now that you have those 2 examples down, let's give it a try by yourself. I'm going to write the decimal form, and I want you to write the fraction, word, and expanded form. Then you can press play to see how you did. So I'm going to go 16 and 32 thousandths. I gave you a trick here. I've got nothing in the 10th spot. Pause this video and give it a try. All right, now that you've given it a go, you should have written 16 and 32 thousandths. Make sure you have 3 zeros there and not 2. In the written form, you should have done 30. Oh, whoops. The written form, you should have done 16 and 32 thousandths. And now for the expanded form, I've got 1 in the 10 spot, so I'm going to put 10. Then I'm going to look at the 1 spot, plus 6. But Mrs. Holly, don't have anything in the 1 spot. That's okay, we're going to skip it. If I've got nothing there, I can move on to my 100th spot. So I'm going to go 0 and 0, 3 hundredths. 0 and 2 thousandths. Okay? That was a tricky one. Did you check and see? Did you skip the 10th spot? Did you make sure you had the 10s and the 1s separated? So 10 plus 6. Okay? Those are the 2 things you're looking for. We'll be practicing the forms of decimals. Nice work today on your video.